Welcome to Simply Caroline, a podcast dedicated to women empowerment where we will discuss a bunch of different subjects such as life, parenting, love, business, money, relationships, healing, recovery, addiction, entrepreneurship, and so much more. A podcast I'll do my best to keep simple, fun, and relatable and bring you tools to help you better your life. So thank you for being here. And here's your host, myself, Caroline Blanchard.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being back here this week. This week, we have a person that will help us being legally savvy. Maureen Vincenty, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. So excited to be here.
My pleasure. So we will have the pleasure of having Maureen 4 times this year because Maureen will be our legal expert. And she has quite the path that brought her there. And she will share a little bit about that. But really what we're going to touch this year is today you will get to know her and you will get to know the basics, but we will also really touch about, protecting your personal empire, protecting your online empire, which the first time she told me that, I was just like, what's that exactly? And protecting your business if you are in business or if you're an entrepreneur or even as a worker. There's a lot of things that when you don't know the legal side, you don't think about. And I actually learned so much with her. She did a personal audit on what I was missing, and I'm missing quite a few. So Maureen, how did you get into that line of being legally savvy?
Wow. Yeah, such a great question. And it's one of the blessings that came out of the global pandemic. It was a complete COVID pivot for me. Never in a million years did I think that I would have anything to do with legal services. My background actually is in science, corporate science for a long time. And then as an entrepreneur in science and stuff as a health consultant, a nutrigenomics, epigenetics coach. And then COVID hit. And my way of generating leads for my coaching business was I used to travel and keynote speak. And so all that got shut down. And I thought, wow, this is not great. I need something else. And I had some friends, if any of you are on that are familiar with Legalshield, which is a direct sales company. I had never heard of it. They've been around actually 50 years is the anniversary this year. And some of them were doing really well in that space. And so they were relentlessly recruiting me. And I wanted nothing to do with it. I thought, leave me alone with this legal stuff. I don't care. I'm a scientist. I'm a health coach. And, I was one of those people that thought MLMs was a pyramid thing. I mean, I was not easy. So I signed up finally. I was praying every morning, like, God, please show me a way I can help people at a lower price point and really make a difference. And I kept praying. And my friend Angie was like, I want to talk to you about Legalshield. I mean, this has been on for 3 months. I thought, leave me alone with this stuff. And so I think my little boxer is walkie-talkie. I'm going to cross that off. Okay. We'll chirp the whole time. Sorry. So I signed up and I went through the corporate training and I just, I built a big team in Legalshield and I was just doing the traditional route for a while. And I honestly can't remember at some point, just because I am that scientist, so my degrees are astrophysics and geology. I worked for NASA and EPA for 12 years. So I've just always been a seeker. I've had to chase everything down like a research rabbit hole. I just want to know why I love systems, spreadsheets, just diving in. And I somehow started stalking all these attorneys online who had left corporate to cater towards the coach and solopreneur. And I signed up for their newsletters. And they were like, did you know you need a privacy policy on your website? Did you know you need this? Did you know? And I thought, what? No one ever taught me that about health coaching. And I thought about all the money I spent investing in business coaching. And no one ever talked about the legal. So my brain started going on fire with, wow, no one's teaching this. And so all of the friends I had in that online space prior to COVID, from leadership programs I did, from, coaching different entrepreneurs, spiritual coaches and healers and all these things, they didn't know. We don't know. So I never thought I needed any support with legal. I knew I had contracts I put together that I piecemealed together on my own, and I never had an attorney sign because I didn't want to pay $500 an hour. I didn't know something like Legalshield existed. But that's really what started this whole idea for my own consulting business called Get Legally Savvy. And at first it was really just helping coaches and entrepreneurs. And then I dove in further and like, what does it really mean? Like my whole hashtag is protect your empire. So I'm like, what does it really mean to be legally savvy? What is the legally savvy woman? How does she protect her legacy? How does she protect her business? How does she protect her personal empire? Whether you're single like I am, or, you're divorced or a single mom or married or have a family, like what does it mean to be savvy in our personal empire? And then with all the hacking and stuff now and online and reputation. And so that's what I put together in this last year and created Get Legally Savvy. So I'm really excited about it. And so how I like to tell people, they're like, are you an attorney? I'm like, I'm not. So think of me as like how I used to be a health coach to the doctor, as like my company is to the attorneys. So like you may need to go see an attorney at some point, just like I used to send people to the endocrinologist. But if you don't even know you need to go see the endocrinologist, you're not going to go. But now you can go, and you can go to a good one, and you know exactly what lab reports and everything else to bring. So you can be proactive and preventive versus reactive and defensive, whether it's health, finances, legal, business, all that stuff. So that is the 20-year notes.
Sorry, I love this analogy that you gave, and that for me, when I was on a webinar with you, that's where I got to know you. And when you said that analogy of like, I'm like the health coach who's telling which doctor to go see, which specialist, it made so much sense. And I'm like, that's exactly what I want, because you're so right. Like someone like me who probably would have needed a lawyer a few times, or properly written contracts or partnerships or whatever, and I didn't. One of my big blocks is I don't want to pay $500 an hour. And like, that when you call them, they pick up the phone and the meter starts, it's like getting in a cab. And you're like, well, I don't want to spend $1,000 for that. So you start making decisions on, is it worth it? And what I like about what you did is, and I laugh every time you say that, I started stalking lawyers. She's not a psycho, people. She just means she starts stalking the information. But
not in their personal life. Yeah, they're sounds really bad, actually.
Wasn't in their house.
Their websites, their blogs, their newsletters. Yeah.
Yes, but what I like is that, and that's probably where your background of like scientist comes out, is really you went to dig and you went to summarize and compile all the information for someone, the average person, to actually understand what they need to do. So tell us a bit about that, like how you really concised all the information, and that now instead of paying, someone to write you a contract for a specific thing that is worth $2,000, you have a template for that.
Yeah. So I launched this year Legally Savvy Office. So it's a portal that everyone that comes in through my company gets access to. And it's like anything that you would need, whether it's, your personal or wills or estates, or if you're a business owner, right? Like there's so many resources. So I have found and collected a lot of legal templates that someone would need to do an event or a retreat, or to have a joint partnership or ventureship, or proper documents that we actually legally need on our websites, like privacy policies, terms and conditions, disclaimers. So it's a one-stop shop, with the Legally Savvy library. And it's great because you don't have to spend money getting custom contracts drafted anymore. And all these attorneys, which is kind of what made me so bad, not to see that they're bad people, but these ones that I learned all this information from that had left corporate to cater towards the solopreneur and the coaches, they were selling their website bundle contracts for, $600 to $800, or their event bundle contracts, or their one-on-one, or, the health coaching contract bundle for $2,000. But all it was a template. And it still didn't include them reviewing it. It was like, click here now on our Calendly link to book for $400 an hour. And what I found was, with enough digging, I love Google. Every man I've ever dated, I'm like, you have to be willing to be in a three-way relationship with me in Google. Sorry, I'm always just, all my friends know it's I can't. I'm like, I gotta Google it. I need to know the facts immediately. But with enough Google research, I found there are sites out there that offer all of these templates for free. And they're drag and drop. But that was another breakdown I saw with a lot of the coaches and entrepreneurs, because I was one of them. It's like, I'm unattached. Whether you want to pay someone to have a really pretty branded custom contract, that's fine. You don't have to. Or maybe you're using something else that you had once signed as a template. That's great, but that's a big breakdown. That's just part A. So no matter where you get your template from, you still have to have a qualified attorney in your state that knows the local laws and the bar to review it to make sure it's ironclad for your business. Because even if your friend used one that they had an attorney review, one, you don't know the quality of that attorney. So you don't even really know if it was legally reviewed. And the second that we change it, maybe we live in a different state, we put our business name in it, right? We slightly reword things. There's no guarantee it's ironclad anymore. And how attorneys work is they're wordsmiths. They love poking holes. All it takes is one angry client, unfortunately, they're out there, to decide that they're not happy and to come after you. And if they hire an attorney and that attorney finds one run-on sentence or one double negative in that contract, that's all they need to go to town. So it's like, just with little small things up front in the beginning, we can put in place to have a solid foundation. It can potentially save tens of thousands of dollars later down the road. Just again, with the health coaching analogy, it's all about being proactive and preventive versus reactive and defensive. Like, one thing actually that I really liked from one of the newsletters of the attorneys, she said, praying to not get sued is not a good legal strategy. It's like, oh yeah, I did that for 5 years. Yes. Basically my health coaching business, so, and because again, I thought it was just so expensive and there were so many other things like I didn't know. I knew I probably should have contracts reviewed, but everything else that I learned, I had no idea. I had no idea about privacy policies on websites, or it's finable by $2,500 per person if caught. Or all these things.
When you told me that, I freaked out a little. I was just like, oh my goodness, can you send me one, please? And I'll get it reviewed. Yeah,
totally.
That's a crazy fine too. Like, per person who actually joins your website, it's like he said, I was the queen at taking my friend's contract and just changing a few words in it. But it's true that it's not necessarily adapted for you. And the beautiful thing when we go through you is that we get a discount on good lawyers as well, right?
Yeah, totally. I have such great access through my affiliate with Legalshield and ID Shield, and only in the US and Canada. So if you're not in the US and Canada and you're listening to this, I can still absolutely support you with contracts, templates, and this. And then, maybe you can barter, find someone you can do a trade with or something. But I can't stress, like, when I go through and I really educate people, on the whole process of what it is to protect your empire, it's 4 parts, right? Part 1 is education. Like, we don't know what we don't know, so it's like I help people know what they need to know that they don't even know they need to know, right? Because that's step 1. So they're not even going to go see the attorney or the doctor, the whatever it is, if they don't realize that there's a gap there for them. So that's part 1. Part 2 is tools, which is contracts, templates. It's like, let me help you figure out exactly what it is that you need and where to source those things, so it's really easy. And then part 3 is the attorneys. Like, we can't skip over that part. There is a time and a place where we actually need a qualified attorney, whether it's a business, real estate attorney on personal things, estate planning, whatever it is, traffic. There are attorneys that specialize in certain things we get to use to really make sure we're set up. And then 4 is support and community, accountability, support. Because how many times do we know that there's things we need to do that we still are not doing because it's just like, it's not top of mind, it's annoying. I get it. Legal's not fun. If you're business owners, content creation is so much more fun. Getting lost in Canva or serving the people or engaging, like, legal is not I'm obsessed with it. I think it's fun. And I'm totally not surprised if you don't get lit up about legal. So
well, that's why we need people like
you. Let me be excited about it for you, but then it's support and community. So like, with my company, what we'll do is for everyone that's in the community, we'll, have a newsletter that goes out during the week. And if you're within the community, it's like, okay, let's all hang out on Zoom. Let's do coffee and contracts for an hour. Let's just get it over with. Wine and wills, knock your estate planning out of the way, like whatever, like we just get to make it fun. But, obviously your listeners are on here too, because they understand the importance of community, the community that you've created, the empowerment of women, like just all that stuff. Like I think it's really important regardless of the industry, to create community, accountability, collaboration, inspiration, all that stuff. So
especially in our days right now, it's like we need this online community. But there's one thing that you mentioned, that I find that probably most people, and I'm going to poll people unofficially here, everyone who has a will, raise your hands. And I can't see it, but I know that this is one thing that I always procrastinated on because I don't want to think about when I go, what's going to happen to my kids. And then I'm thinking, obviously, when I was married, well, my husband gets everything and he's going to take care of the kids. And until someone really said, like, no, you need to have your own will for like your belongings, your estate, your kids, the custody. There's so many things that we need to cover. And clearly, I understand we push it and we push it because we don't want to think about that. We're all eternal. But, do you know off the top of your head, and I'm almost throwing you under the bus here, but do you know the percentage of people who do have a will and who doesn't?
I think over 60% of Americans, I'm not sure about Canadians, I think over 60% of Americans do not have a will. When I heard this, I was shocked. Or I will, get in front of someone that's been on one of my webinars and I'm going through and figuring out how I can support them. So I'm like, okay, great. We're going to break it down. Personal empire, online business. Let's just start with personal. Let's talk about will. So many don't. And I was one of them. I thought, I'm single, I'm young, I just have cats, right? But I realized no, if something happens to me, it just doesn't default and go to my family. It goes to probate. It goes to courts. Like my car, I do have things to protect. I have a business, but I kept thinking, I'm young, I'm healthy, I don't have kids. Or I'll sit down with a family and they'll be like, yeah, we did our estate planning. I'm like, awesome. When did you do it? I don't know, 10 years ago. I'm like, okay, great. Tell me more. How many kids do you have? Well, we have 4 kids. Awesome. How old are they? 12, 9, 7, and 5. I'm like, great. So the last 3 are not in the will. Got it.
Oh, wow.
And then they're just like, oh my gosh, so it really needs to be updated annually, or even if you've had a major life change event, if you've, purchased a home or all that stuff. So I have access to programs and cost-effective solutions with what I'm affiliated with, where it's like wills, estate planning, all that stuff's included and updated annually. Like I just got mine updated. I moved from California to Florida 3 months ago. And so I realized, oh man, I need to call the law firm in Florida and get my will updated because it's no longer valid. I moved states.
Yeah.
So
there's just one thing I want to touch on, because for me, for the longest time, especially when I was in your situation, single, I was just like, who needs a will? Probably like, who's going to inherit my $100? So I wasn't too worried about it. But you really mentioned things for me that clicked. It's like power of attorney and your last wishes and all of this. I always joked with my sister that if something happens to us, to one or the other, we'll know what to do. Like, she would take the right decisions. But what if she's not there? And, legally, she wouldn't even have any power to decide for myself, now that I'm married and I have kids and all of that. But these are also crucial things, because you want to think, God forbid something's going to happen, but if you do lose your capacity of making decisions, you want to make sure that the person who's making them for you is someone you trust, someone, that you chose.
Yeah. And I get it. It's not fun to think about those end of life things. I mean, it happened to me earlier. Well, I wouldn't say this year. We're already in the new year. Last year in 2021, I was really badly rear-ended about 3 years ago. And I still have some I went to the chiropractor. There's still spasms in this. So they sent me to go get and I've been under general anesthesia 9 times, athlete, knee surgeries, I've not been the easiest on my body. Never anything seriously medically wrong, all sports stuff. But I had to go get a spinal epidural done. So they had to put me in twilight anesthesia. And so when I went in, the nurse had asked, do you have an advanced directive, healthcare power of attorney, essentially? And I was like, no. And again, it wasn't until that moment, I just assume I'm going to wake up and everything's going to be fine. But I realized worst case scenario, should I have, an adverse reaction to the anesthesia or complication? I never thought. I'm like, what am I going to tell my dad, who was there to pick me up? Do I want to be on life support? Do I not? So it just gave me the opportunity, even as a woman in my late 30s, to start thinking about these things. And then with the connections I have with the law firms and stuff, I knew it was included in my membership. So I told the nurse, I was like, this was on a Friday. Monday morning, I called the law firm and got one done. So it's just another thing, and from personal experience, when I go through and I serve people, it's we get to do the estate planning, the will, the healthcare power of attorney, just so it's peace of mind. You think about it once, it can be uncomfortable, but then at least it's done. It's not this heavy thing hanging over.
Yeah. No, and so, like I said, for me before, it was always that doesn't apply to me because I'm not a millionaire. No one's going to fight over my estate. But it goes so much beyond that. Whether you do have money to leave or not, you can also leave your debt, and someone can also inherit from that. But mostly for me, the big thing was power of attorney and my last wishes. If I'm not there to speak for myself, I want it written somewhere. So really you touch on that, and you also touch quickly, because we're gonna have an in-depth training, I should say, or interview with you. But talk a little bit about the protecting your online empire, because as well, when you told me that, I was like, holy smokes, that's, and it's funny because these days, I would say in the last 3 months, I got at least 10 friends who texted me, hey, don't answer, Facebook Messenger, I've been hacked. So now it's almost I'm so used to hearing it that I'm like, oh, another one got hacked. But some people go through hell.
It happened to me. My Instagram is not my original Instagram. It's not my Instagram anymore. It was taken over by Bitcoin miners, right? Pretending to be me. And what breaks my heart the most, once I came up with the concept for Get Legally Savvy and all this stuff, I realized I should probably create a new Instagram anyway that was actually representative of my brand, since it was going to be a business account. Because my personal Instagram, because I'm the only Maureen Vincenty on the planet, which I guess is a blessing and a curse, because I'm easy to find if you Google me. But because of that, it was my name, was my Instagram, and it's 10 years of all my photos and this. And I'm sure people are very confused, because it was when I was working in corporate as a geologist, me traveling the world and family. And then I was vegan, and then I was carnivore only. Then I'm a health coach, and I dabbled in legal. So I think people it's my life. But the problem is I never got access of the account back. So if I were to go network now with anyone, and it's happened last week, actually, I was networking for when I was traveling, and people are like, do you have Instagram? And I'm like, gosh, I have to go through the whole thing. I do. I have 2 profiles. This one's not me. This one is me. Because if they were just to Google my name and think that they're communicating with me, I never got access to the account back. And I know now that these hackers have gotten at least $7,000 from my friends, thinking that they're giving money to me on Cash App, because they Photoshop my picture onto a Cash App. And what they started doing is they took over my page. They locked me out. They changed my email, so I couldn't reset my password. I have never been able to get Instagram on the phone. I did everything. I watched YouTube videos on how to regain control of your thing and do facial scanning. I did all of it. I never got my account back. And so they'll post on my Instagram, look at this new car I just bought from all this money I made Bitcoin mining, or I just bought this house. So I have a lot of friends that are involved in my regular life that I knew it wasn't you because of some of the wording, There was a red Ford Focus they said that I bought because I made 20 grand one day in Bitcoin mining. But in the comments, it said, look at the new whip I bought. And I'm like, whip? I would never say that. Right. Or like a house. A lot of people knew I just moved to Florida. And so in the 8th picture of the house, there were pine trees in the backyard. So they reached out and were like, this isn't you, is it? So that's what bothers me the most is I can create a new Instagram account, but they're taking advantage of people that think it's me over time that I built relationship with people that know, like, and trust me. So the only reason they thought I was doing some holiday giveaway that they even cash apped because they were honestly thought they were talking to me via private messenger. So it's happening. And I think with COVID and who knows how much longer the lockdown is going to go, and we've transferred so much more into an online space. Now more than ever, do we need to really be careful about protecting ourselves from hacking, monitoring passwords. I had always heard of the importance. I knew about a virtual private network, a VPN, when I used to work for corporate because I had the company laptops. And so if I were to ever work remotely or work from home, I knew I always was logging in through their internal secured platform, regardless of where I was connecting to internet. So I know, thinking about if you're a coach, an entrepreneur, you love traveling, what are you doing to protect your security when you're online at that Starbucks, at the hotel lobby, and all these unsecured internet connections? That's really something we need to consider because people are accessing our personal information that way. Password management systems. The dark web. I didn't really know a lot about the dark web. I can go into more detail about this on one of the other things that we do, but just things to consider. What are you doing? We think, okay, yeah, I'm monitoring my credit, great. Or my credit card company monitors that. You need to be monitoring all 3 credit bureaus. You need to have something that's monitoring your social media platforms, your emails, your credit cards, your passports, your medical ID, and also your kids. I had a friend whose daughter, she tried to register her 4-year-old for preschool last year and found out that her daughter's social security had already been being used. So her daughter's identity had already been stolen at 4.
Oh, wow.
So there's so much that we need to think about. And luckily there's software platforms that I can share with you. If you ever want to book some time with me or something that's all in ones. So it's LifeLock combined with Norton 360, combined with a VPN, combined with LastPass. It can really be easy. Also, reputation management. I did a reputation management scan on myself and it went through. Actually, it was pretty cool. And there was pictures of me from 2011 on Facebook where I don't know, I was dropping some F-bombs here or there. And I thought, oh boy, that's not, totally how I'm committed to showing up now in the world at this stage in my life. And so it gives you an opportunity to just go through and delete certain things that it'll flag, whether it's racy or political or whatever, just to give you the opportunity to clean things up. There's a lot of millennials out there now I know who aren't getting jobs because, the employer will do a Twitter, or Instagram, a social media platform scan, and they'll find that one unfortunate photo that they were tagged in from a Vegas trip, and it's we all have those moments that a lot of them were not captured because it was prior to the social media explosion. And so imagine not having an opportunity for you to pursue your dreams or passion or your kids because of one photo that's really not representative of what they're capable of or who they are as a person, but it's out there. So there's things that we can do to really, go through and protect our online security, brand, reputation, identity, whether it's personal, business, or a combination of those things.
Thank God internet was not in my age and social media was not in my day and age because, oh goodness. But that is one thing that, I did warn my kids when they started social media. I always said, be careful what you're posting because it's going to follow you forever. And, even if you delete some stuff do stay there. People can still download your pictures and stuff like that. And, I'm listening to you and I'm going to be the devil's advocate. In my mind, it was always well, just be careful. You don't need all that stuff. And if you're not reckless, these things won't happen. That was me probably 3 years ago. Now I know some people that were good people with absolutely nothing, doing nothing wrong and being even more careful than I was. being hacked and having their identity stolen. And it's a pure nightmare because, you know, when I'm sure that some listeners are listening right now saying, well, just get on the phone with Instagram and get your account back. But it's so not that simple. And the same as when you get your identity stolen, it's so, so hard because these are people that are professional at what they're doing. So, you know, they proved on their side that they're you. So it's extremely hard for you to go and prove that they're not, it's you. You know what I mean? So it's very difficult, and we need to be super careful about these things because everything is going more and more online, you know? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if soon everything 100% is online. And the thing is, the best example we have as well that everything is tracked and followed. Type something in your Google, I don't know, you're looking for a red dress, and then go on Facebook and there's going to be a picture of a red dress.
I'm never sure if I should be creeped out or impressed. You know what I mean?
I feel the same way as you. I'm always like, whoa, that was quick. And that's two different platforms in my head. I'm like, one is Google, and then I close this window and I go on Facebook, and then, you know, I go on something else, and that red dress is still there, and I'm like, I'm not liking this. So we have to be careful, you know, on how our movements on the online, because once it happens to you, you will be like, oh my goodness, should have listened to that Maureen, you know? So yes.
And another analogy, I mean, I love that you brought that up because I can relate, you know, to thinking I didn't need it. Same thing with the legal. But I'm like, for such a cost-effective way for us to be able to put stuff in place, it's kind of like, I'll go back to the health coaching analogy just because that was my world for so long. I mean, I healed my body from so many different autoimmune diseases. I can't remember the last time I went to the doctor because I never get sick. I mean, honestly, COVID didn't scare me at all. I haven't even had a cold or a flu in 15 years, right? So like, but I still have my medical insurance because if I get rear-ended or something is, you know, and I need to go to the emergency room and they need to stitch me up, you better believe I don't want a $400,000 out-of-pocket bill. But I'm not on prescription medication. I'm not utilizing all the things available to me for paying my monthly medical insurance. So many other people for like the preventative, the checkups, the things like that. Because, you know, so in my brain, it would have been easy to say, why am I wasting $400 a month on medical insurance? Because I take such excellent care of my body and my health with how I eat and sleep. I don't need any of it, but yet it's still there. So it kind of reminds me of what you were saying, like, I'm so safe, I whatever. But the same thing with the car accidents. Like, you might not be a reckless driver, but that doesn't mean you're still not going to get rear-ended by someone crazy when you're stopped at a red light. That's what happened to me. I was 8 cars back at a red light, been stopped for over a minute when someone plowed into me. So it had nothing to do with my driving. There was literally nothing I could have done to avoid it. You know, probably with Instagram, I could have maybe have had stuff linked and things like that and would have been absolutely, but still, I don't feel like I'm out online being, you know, irresponsible with my finances or all this stuff. And yet things out there can happen. So it's all about what can we do, what's available to us to put some basic things into place to just make sure that we are protected all around: health, finances, legal, identity, you know, whatever it is, there's things out there that can support us this day and age.
Yes. And you'll also touch on, you know, business and entrepreneurs, because that is a huge shift that we had in 2020 as well. A lot of people became entrepreneurs, full-time or part-time or side-time or whatever, but a lot of people started a business. And again, you know, we think, well, I'm only selling a few of these, or I'm only doing this. And I know that Canada, we're not as bad as USA with the lawsuits and everything, but we still have some. But even when I talked with you and you're like, well, you know that this has to be in place, and this has to be in place, and this has to be in place. And I remember a few years ago, and I'm talking like 20, I didn't want to go in business and start my own business because I didn't want to have to deal with all of that. You know, it sounded overwhelming, but now we start on a smaller scale by having side businesses and stuff like that, but we don't treat it as we can get sued the same way, and we need to protect ourselves the same way as if it was, a huge business, because the minute that you decide to go in business, you put yourself at risk if you're not protected. So that's, for entrepreneurs out there. And I'm saying all of this not to do scarcity, because I don't believe in that. I'm just saying it because literally Megan offered me an option that is less than $2 a day, that now I feel safe. And I feel like, okay, I'm secure. And you know what I don't know, I know she'll tell me, hey, do you know that you don't know this? And I'll be like, oh, okay. Because there's so much that you actually don't know. And, like she said, you don't know until you know. So if you don't have someone who will give you the proper advice, or really take the time to go through an audit with you, you're not really sure, what am I missing? And actually, Maureen she does audits with people, and I was very impressed with mine, I have to say. It was very complete, and showed that I was missing quite a few things. So thank you for that audit. But is it something that you offer? How do you offer your audit, Maureen?
Yeah, so I think you'll have my website, linked and stuff, and so people can sign up on there to get an audit. And basically, the audit process is I'll be able to sit down with you for an hour or so on Zoom, and we'll just go through everything. We'll go through like what you currently have in place and maybe where your liabilities are for those 3 categories, right? We'll go through personal. Are you married, single? What do you have in place? Like the top things that, okay, what needs to be addressed now? Maybe things to think about in the future. Same thing with online, reputation, brand, identity, personal, family, business, whatever is relevant to your life. And then business, if you're a coach, entrepreneur, small business owner, what do you have in place? What do you need to have? Then you get a Protect Your Empire Blueprint report, which I'll summarize everything in kind of action items. So you're like, it's a great checklist and a step-by-step action plan. And then you get access to my back office, which is Legally Savvy Office, which is, a members only platform. You get unlimited access, lifetime membership to that. And it's reminders of videos and templates, access to the legal library and the community workshops and all that stuff. So my intention is really to help business owners, coaches, entrepreneurs, even just families, really protect their empire, have everything, all the education tools, resources that they need, to really be legally savvy and protect their online brand, reputation, identity, and all that stuff. So
without spending thousands. That's
saving
key point here.
Peace of mind, making it fun, and saving tens of thousands of dollars in the process. Yes.
Yeah, plus Maureen is super cool and nice, so you'll probably gain a friend as well. Well, stay tuned with us. Maureen is coming back in June, and then in September and December, and she's gonna, educate us a bit more on different aspects of being legally savvy. Maureen, thank you so much for being with us today. And I believe I call you Megan once or twice in the interview, and I don't know why.
Funny, it's actually my fake name at Starbucks, so you picked up on that because no one ever spells Maureen right. So I'm always in public, and my dad they're like, "How many people?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's 3 for dinner. What's the name, Megan?" My dad looks at me. I'm like, oh, Dad, I've been doing this since I was 15. So you already know in public it's Megan at Starbucks or whatever. So it's funny. I
totally got it from you. I'm getting conflicting names thrown at me when I speak with you. So, well, there you go. So Maureen, Megan. No, Maureen Vincenty, thank you so much for being with us. And please contact us if you have any questions, or if you just want to learn a bit more about being legally savvy.